On January 28th, 2021, at 7:43 p.m., a friend of mine opened up a Minecraft server for my friends and I to use. It was designed to only last a short while, and I never expected it to be active longer than a month. What I didn't know was that the server would soon expand into a long and treacherous journey, plagued with betrayal and rocky alliances. Those of you watching this may not know the truth behind most of the events of the server. Some of you may not have even heard of it. Regardless, this server became one known for two things: alliances and backstabbing. This is the story of the coolest Mr. E, SMP. See this guy here? Name's Evan. His online alias is Coolest Mr. E. So of course he named his Minecraft server after that.
How original.
The hope was to have a server on the superior Java edition of Minecraft, but we instead settled for using Bedrock Edition, as it has crossplay on every platform. This greatly increased the amount of people we could add, and allowed us to include more of our mutual friends. The original members of the server include myself and some friends of Evan and mine, those being Christopher, Emma, Callie, Will, Wyatt, and the titular Izzy. There were some other miscellaneous people added in the first couple days, but most, if not all of them, lost relevance relatively quickly. The server started off as a pure anarchy server. There were absolutely zero rules, everything was allowed. There were rules against cheating and using exploits, but there was nothing to prevent griefing or killing. The server would eventually receive extensive restrictions on just how far you could take griefing, but in its beginning state, there was nothing stopping full-on chaos. The first day was a complete free-for-all. Everyone was out for themselves, and the server quickly divided into two different groups: those who chose to live at spawn, and those who wanted to forge their own bases far away. Evan took me on as the second moderator to keep everything running smoothly, choosing me due to my high knowledge of Minecraft. I quickly gathered resources near spawn before venturing out to build a base of operations. Evan decided to base along with me. Christopher would settle near the spawn village in the hills, and designate himself as the Mountain King. This name would be the subject of a lot of teasing, but that's a story for later. Wyatt would also settle close to spawn, creating a small collection of shacks in a mine, known as the USSR. Izzy, Emma, Callie, Will, and the rest would settle at spawn, creating a community to keep each other safe. It's important to note that the server's original purpose wasn't to actually last very long. The server's anarchy nature opened up the door for immediate hostile relations, and it was likely that most people wouldn't survive for very long. The general dog-eat-dog environment threatened to ostracize people based on skill, and those at the lower end of the skill floor were likely to essentially be bullied out. The server's two main groups, the Spawn Village and the Outsiders, quickly began to build tension. Will built huge walls around the Spawn Village, cutting it off from the rest of the map. Those in the Spawn Village believed that their defenses and numbers made them the strongest faction in the server, and they were only growing by the day. Due to this, the Outsiders formed a temporary alliance, joining forces to plan an attack against the Spawn Village. The Outsiders wished to put the villagers in their place, and wanted to attack their home with explosives and fire. Their attack would be in secret, and would take out the villagers before they knew what hit them. Unfortunately, the so-called Mountain King had other plans. Christopher was working as a spy for the Spawn Village, giving information back and forth to each side. Christopher ultimately betrayed the Outsiders due to the villagers having something that the Outsiders didn't: women. Christopher was a bit of an incel, a simp, if you will. He would do literally anything if it meant he received the attention of a woman. Christopher quickly took to the villagers' side, revealing the Outsiders' plan. The villagers confronted the Outsiders, but ended up taking an odd approach to the matter. Led by Izzy, the villagers protested the plans to attack their village, saying that it would ultimately ruin the fun of the server for everyone in the Spawn Village. While Wyatt and I still wanted to fight with the villagers, Evan made the decision to hold off the attack, creating the server's first true rule. This rule, which would later be known as Rule 3, was a simple statement of respect among the players. We would all be responsible for keeping the fun of the server, even if it was anarchy. The rule utilized my tried and true principle of don't be a dick, something I had used in previous servers. Evan's decision to cave to the villagers was what ended up causing the server to grow and live as long as it did. If the Outsiders had attacked the Spawn Village, none of the rich history of the SMP would have ever occurred. It goes to show that sometimes having a backstabbing simp can be a blessing in disguise. As the server began to grow with no end in sight, Evan and I decided to create a permanent faction to establish ourselves. In the first week of the server, we had already found and taken over a small plains village far from spawn. We had constructed walls to protect the village, and began trading with its villagers to quickly acquire resources to prepare ourselves for combat. We made farms specifically to get trade items, and we began to build up our enchantments. As we established ourselves, Evan brought up the idea of solidifying our small nation, starting from our village. The small nation would be known as Lamb Park, which was a pun on the popular YouTube series Ram Ranch. Evan also wrote a declaration of our nation known as the Lamb Park Bible, which contained a passage of poetry that Evan had written. This passage spoke of the true nature of our nation and motivated us to expand our power. 18 gentlemen in the loo at Lamb Park. 18 gentlemen with their canes ready to be struck. 18 gentlemen ready and plucked. Wow, Lamb Park really rocks. Much of our early success came from my patented get shit quick scheme. The 1.14 update buffed the hell out of villagers, and not only allowed players to dictate which job a villager has, but also cycle through their starting trades. This allowed me to easily acquire all of the trades we would need to become unstoppable. We started by creating a tree farm to acquire a bunch of sticks. We then sold those sticks en masse to Bookwolf Fletchers to acquire a ton of emeralds. We then used those emeralds to trade for enchant books and diamond armor. After only a few days, we had almost everything we needed to make a fully enchanted diamond gear. All it would take was time and a bit more grinding. We were also the first group on the server to make it to the Nether. Our journey to get potion supplies was much more difficult than anticipated. The Nether update had recently been released and made it so that Netherwart only spawned in Nether fortresses, meaning we couldn't cheese our first fire-resistant potions with villagers anymore. The Nether and our seed also put us in a very dangerous spot. We had to make our way along the walls of the Nether, avoiding lava oceans and skeleton armies. Eventually, we caught sight of another fortress, but Evan had to log off, leaving me to fight my way through it. Mobs in Bedrock Edition are able to see you through walls, so I had to use a large amount of finesse to dodge the armies of blazes and wither skeletons. I eventually found the Netherwart and made my way back to Lamb Park. The members of the spawn village were also quite busy. They decided to establish themselves as a faction known as Gorlstown, as Will became inactive and the only members left were women. They started by creating a central building known as the Brothel, where they would communally share resources. They also built up a defense of berry bushes around the perimeter of the building. Gorlstown was notorious for having a mob problem. Even with all their defenses, mobs still managed to get inside their walls and attack them. Creeper holes littered the village, and zombies ran amok. The town's members also tended to be on the lower end of skill, and frequently died due to these mobs. Despite this, the town persevered, but even perseverance could only take them so far. They realized they would need a strong leader to help them fix up the town. On February 4th, they decided to hold an election, which consisted of 3 candidates: Izzy, Emma, and Evan. Evan wasn't actually supposed to be on the poll, but he put himself in there because he thought it would be funny. Izzy ended up winning with 50% of the vote, becoming the president of Gorlstown. She then appointed Emma as her vice president. As president, Izzy gained full control over Gorlstown, essentially becoming a dictator. She spent her first few days trying her hardest to improve the infrastructure of the town, but was unsuccessful. The damage simply piled up too fast. Despite this, she still tried to keep the town citizens thinking positive, even holding a marriage ceremony between her and Emma to keep the server lively. More people would be added to the server during this time, most joining into Gorlstown's ranks. One of those members was Dune Dealer, who would come in and out of the spotlight throughout the server's lifespan. As Gorlstown grew in strength and numbers, they decided to rebrand to being called Simp City, of which they would stick with for the rest of the server's lifespan. As February continued on, Simp City would become a force to be reckoned with. Soon after this, Evan added his stepdad Eric into the server. He informed me that Eric would be living near Lamp Park, which I was fine with as long as he didn't interfere with our base or our stuff. One day as I was farming wood, I noticed that someone had made their way into Lamp Park. I quickly rushed over to see someone new rummaging through our chests. I told him to put the stuff back and leave, but all he did was stare at me like he had no idea what I was typing. Annoyed, I quickly killed him and moved on with my day. Eventually, Evan showed up and explained that the guy was his stepdad. I was a little annoyed that he was already breaking our agreement to keep Eric at a Lamp Park, but decided to let it slide. While this was normally a small action on the server, especially from me, Evan's stepdad took it as a declaration of war. He immediately went into the chat ranting about how I struck him down without reason. He declared that he would return soon and burn Lamp Park to the ground. Little did we know, this would soon lead to a butterfly effect of actions that would create chaos beyond belief. This small action would shape our server into a hive of war, betrayal, and secrets. This one action would shape the history of the coolness Mr. E, SMP.